Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm doing an overview of the gear that I pack and take to a Milsim West game. If you don't know what Milsim West is, it's a 40-hour, weekend-long airsoft military simulation game, usually with several hundred people. It's essentially just doing a force-on-force activity like you would do in the military with UTMs or simunitions, but with airsoft guns and several hundred people, so you can get actually large formations going and stuff like that, and actually get out there and start doing some like light infantry warfare. So if you don't know, I cadre for them occasionally when I have time from other obligations. I make it out to as many games as I can, and I'm going to be at the Washington Ural line game here the very beginning of May. So I wanted to do kind of an overview of the gear that I take out, hopefully give you guys some ideas of what to bring. I'm going to go over the red line items, which are the items that you are required to bring and will be checked at check-in by myself or whoever your cadre is. And then I'll go over some other items that I bring personally that I find to be useful, whether it's for cadreing or just comfort out in the field, things like that, or makes me more effective in the simulated fight. So starting off the red line items, the first thing that you're gonna need and that's gonna get checked is your uniform. You need a uniform that is an appropriate camo for your faction. I am going to be cadreing in Washington on the Rust 4 side for that game. So I have a Russian camo uniform here. Additionally, you're going to want extra uniform items like a shirt under it and boots and things like that. I'm wearing my boots right now, but obviously those are all going to be necessary too. Definitely don't come out in fucking Converse or something like that. You need some kind of shoe that can handle, being out in the woods. Whether that's a trail running shoe or a boot or something like that. It doesn't have to be necessarily a military boot, but definitely have something with tread on it that can handle steep terrain and loose rocks and stuff like that. Kind of similar to the uniform or related to the uniform, you are going to need a primary weapon system airsoft gun that is a replica of a firearm that your faction would be using. Again, I'm on the Russian side, so I have an AK pattern airsoft gun, so that's what I'll be using for this game. The next item that's going to be checked is eye pro. You're going to want to have clear eye pro on you. You can have some kind of tinted eye protection for during the daytime when it's bright or whatever, but you need to have clear eye protection with you because the game goes all through the night, 2 different nights, and we don't want you running around with sunglasses out there in the middle of the night not seeing shit. Obviously, that's a safety issue, so you need to have a pair of clear eye pro at a minimum. Honestly, I would recommend bringing 2 sets of eye protection because I've seen people break their eye pro out there. They fell off their face and somebody stepped on it, something like that. It can happen. It's a safety problem. So luckily, other players who were in their squad or platoon stepped up and had an extra pair and were able to loan them to them and stuff like that. But it's nice to, number one, it's nice to be that guy who can help somebody out. And number 2, it's nice to not need help if you already have a spare pair. So keep that in mind. Other items that are red line items that you have to bring are a notepad or some kind of something you can write on and a pen to write on it, right? And a wristwatch. These items are very important for when information is disseminated. It's good for coming up with rosters at nighttime for who's pulling security, so you don't end up with an entire platoon all asleep at the same time and then you get raided. Wristwatches help you make hit times and stuff like that when you're given that by your leadership, like myself. These are things that a lot of people sometimes skip or skimp on. It becomes an issue not only because now you don't know where the fuck you're supposed to be at what time. Also, it gets into the issue of there's a reason it's required, and if you couldn't even bring the items that are listed as required in the tax op, I can't assume as the cadre that you read the rest of the tax op. If you couldn't do that simple task of bringing a notepad and pen, then it's potentially a safety issue because it's like, what else didn't you read in the tax op? Are you going to be dangerous out there not following the rules? Are you going to be some kind of an issue, basically? So just bring that shit. Bring a fucking wristwatch. Don't be like, oh, I got my phone. I can take notes on my phone. Oh, I can tell the time on my phone. That's not what the tax op says. Just bring a fucking wristwatch. And then you're also going to need like a little card with like your name, an emergency contact, and any like known allergies, stuff like that on it. You're going to have to keep that on you at all times, along with identification and your orders, which are going to be signed off by your cadre as you kind of go through check-in on the first afternoon. In addition to all that kind of equipment, you are also going to need some kind of sleeping gear. I have a sleeping bag here. It's in this USGI Gore-Tex bivy. You can bring out a variety of different things, but you need some kind of sleeping gear, sleep system, whatever. And I would definitely recommend that you look at the weather beforehand and bring something appropriate. Beyond all this here, you're also gonna need to bring food and water. I didn't bring a bunch of food out here because The game's a month out and I didn't feel like just bringing food out into the woods to film a video, but imagine that there's a bunch of food here. You will get hungry. If you're not used to doing this stuff, you will get hungry and tired. I like a Camelback bladder plus a small like canteen or Nalgene, something like that, for when I'm like kind of on the go. But my Camelback bladder is kind of my main water source for the weekend. You will generally get water resupply, but you shouldn't just be counting on that like immediately after the game starts. If you were out of water 2 hours into the game, like, you were a fucking problem. Another item that's a little weather dependent is your cold and wet weather gear. You are expected to have some kind of appropriate gear for whatever the weather is going to be in the area that you are going to be, you know, doing the Milsim West game at. So I didn't bring any out here because, again, it's like a month out. I don't know what the weather is going to be like. Usually it's pretty mild in this May game in Washington, but, you know, definitely bring something appropriate. Bring stuff like a poncho. Everything that I've got here is actually laid out on one of my ponchos, and then I have a second poncho inside my actual like load-bearing gear that I'm going to be using on the Russian side. It's in the butt pack, so I've got 2 ponchos, plus I actually have a like a tent footprint as well that I use as a tarp sometimes. Definitely bring something appropriate. I've seen a lot of people leave games because they got soaked or they got cold and they were miserable because they didn't bring enough of that equipment. Alternatively, I've seen plenty of people leave games because they packed a lot of stuff, you know, and they were extremely prepared, over-prepared, some might say, and they weren't in shape enough to carry it all. So make sure you are in shape enough to carry all of your equipment that you think you're going to need. Last couple of red line items are just going to be 3 pairs of socks. I have spare socks in here, and then that's just because people get their feet soaked, and we don't want like foot injuries and things like that happening from people wearing disgusting, filthy socks for the whole game. So you need to be able to change into dry socks. If you ever read anything about the military, having dry socks is very fucking important. So bring 3 pairs of extra socks. And then trash bags. You want some nice heavy duty trash bags. Don't get like some little flimsy like house like drawstring trash bags. Get some nice heavy duty like contractor bags. Bring plenty for yourself, your friends, whatever. I also bring a couple of spare like quart Ziploc bags to put little random items in case it really starts pouring or something like that, and one of my existing bags gets a hole in it or something like that. But you don't have to bring that, but you definitely have to bring the trash bags that will be inspected because it's important. You can not only use that to waterproof your equipment, your ruck, whatever, keep it from getting soaked through, but you can also cut holes, you know, a head hole and an arm hole, and wear that thing if for some reason your wet weather gear isn't working out. Along with your appropriate uniform and, you know, camo and stuff like that, you are also going to need some kind of equipment to carry magazines and whatnot because you are fighting a war. So right here is a knockoff Russian Smersh. That's probably what I'm going to be using at this Ural line game, maybe in addition to a chest rig or something like that. Obviously, I've got some gloves on there. You will tear up your hands out in the field if you do not wear gloves. And then this is like a Milsim West tourniquet. Again, read the tack SOP on how that stuff kind of works. And then if you're in any kind of leadership position, you're going to want a radio. This is an Islands HD1. A lot of people just use Baofangs. You know, they're cheap and easy to use. No big deal using a Baofeng. That's fine. Don't feel like you have to spend a bunch on a radio. And then you should have plenty of magazines for your airsoft gun. Last item you're really going to need on like your red line items is going to be a rucksack. I got a large Alice pack over here. I've used this thing for many, many years. I actually bought this before I ever joined the military. So this thing is like 14 years old or some shit like that. It's been around a lot. Never failed me. I've modified it a bunch. Maybe I'll do a short video talking through kind of the modifications I've done to my Alice pack at some point. But yeah, I like the Alice. It's kind of a good entry level ruck, but there's all kinds of good rucks out there you can try out. So, you know, look around, see what you can find, and bring a good rucksack. Okay, moving beyond items that are going to actually be required, let's get into sort of things that are going to make your life easier, more comfortable, and let you have more fun, basically, at the games. First off, something to sleep on. Obviously, we covered like the actual sleep system, sleeping bag, bivvy, whatever, but having a pad is really going to help you out. I know that's obvious, but some of you probably haven't been out in the field before and stuff like that, and you haven't slept on rocks and it sucks. And, you know, definitely bring a foam sleeping pad or even some kind of like backpacking lightweight cot that you can assemble. That could be an option, but something low profile. You're not setting up like a fucking 10-man expedition tent out there. That's not the point. The point is to be somewhat tactical, right? So something like a Z-folding sleeping pad like this in a neutral color is a really good option. Another item that you're really going to want to bring are wet wipes, because you're going to have to go to the bathroom out there, and it's going to suck if you don't have wet wipes. And wet wipes are just good for like wiping your face off, things like that, when you know you're all like salt crusted and shit because you've been running around all day, you get all dirty, stuff like that, wiping your hands off, just keeping them clean in general. So really good even for just not going to the bathroom, but all kinds of other stuff too. I always tell people to get wet wipes in the packs that have kind of like a snap closure lid and not like the little peel stick kind of like flaps, because those things always get dirt on them and then they don't seal and then you get dirt into your wet wipe pack. So having that nice little like clasp on the lid really helps. I think I might have already said this when I was talking about ponchos, but I actually bring out a tent footprint as a little extra tarp as well. Just another thing that I can either throw over all of my gear or lay out or make a little shade shelter or something like that by tying it up to some trees. I have 2 ponchos plus that, so I got plenty of stuff to kind of cover my gear and keep everything dry. Believe me, keeping your gear dry is very important. I think this is kind of an unofficial like red line item, is you need to have a headlamp. And this one has like a white light and a red light capability. Very important for safety and things like that. So definitely bring a good headlamp. Make sure it's charged if it has rechargeable batteries, or if it has regular whatever AAAs. Put some fresh ones in it before you come out to a game, and should rock it all weekend. Moving on up here, we have night vision. These are really useful. If you have night vision, definitely bring it. I would definitely put some kind of sacrificial lenses on it. The game does not stop at nighttime. So if you really want to do a lot of stuff at night, you need to either have night vision or rent night vision, which is also possible at our games. It's going to help you kind of have the full experience of the game. It's not that you can't come out and have fun if you don't have nods or don't want to rent them and things like that. I understand people don't have money for that. I get it. You can still have plenty of fun during the daytime, but if you want that full experience of the full 40 hours fighting and stuff like that, night vision is pretty important. Another really important item to have is an e-tool if you're at a field game. Helps you dig fighting positions, trenches, whatnot. Helps you clear out brush maybe from where you're going to lay down and sleep, so there's not a bunch of fucking stuff everywhere that you're laying on top of. Really useful item. I'm going to get into kind of little items here that I bring out. I bring out a multi-tool. I bring out a little sewing kit. I bring out a whistle because I'm in a leadership position, need to be able to coordinate just in case our radios aren't working, which happens from time to time. I bring out a spare set of earplugs in case for some reason I'm not wearing my helmet and I don't want my ears blasted by people doing blank fire, etc. Spare little set of earplugs is nice. Little plunger speed loader, nice and lightweight. And then I also bring out a net gator. This is like a nice ventilated one from Norarm. Having a net gator can be nice, especially when you play urban games, because you're getting blasted in the face a lot, kind of like coming into rooms and shit like that. If you don't want to lose teeth and stuff like that, a net gator can be nice. All right, moving on over here, I got some leg gaiters. That's really important. Again, if you're out in the field, keep shit from going into your boots. Helps keep your boots dry and stuff if you're going through a lot of like wet grass and stuff like that, which definitely happens when you're out doing stuff all times of the day and night. A lot of the brush can get dew on it. Even if it's not raining and stuff, you can still get very soaked. I have a little like map case here that I use sometimes just for coordination. I got a couple of extra pens in it, and then I'll print off maps of the AO. I have a spare notepad in here. And then over here, I have a little like emergency pack, just some fire starting equipment, a couple of emergency blankets, and some 550 cord. I would definitely bring a battery charger for your airsoft batteries. I've seen so many people come to games and their batteries are only half charged or whatever. Definitely bring this with you. You don't have to bring it out into the field, but definitely bring it with you and maybe make sure your shit's charged the night before in a hotel room or whatever. So definitely bring that with you on your trip out to these games. I also bring out a football hand warmer very frequently. Keeps my hands warm. And honestly, a lot of the times it keeps me from having to need heavier layers on, just if I can keep my hands warm and functional. Like I don't have to wear a heavy jacket a lot of the times and stuff because I'm moving around enough that I stay warm with the rest of my body. And then I can just keep my hands themselves warm. And, you know, my finger dexterity is still good, even though maybe it's a little cold out. I think I actually skipped over a couple of these items, so I'll go back. I bring out my old Ranger handbook, just in case I want to reference something in it. I bring out a large dump pouch. Sometimes I use that if I'm carrying extra equipment, or I can loan it out to a player if he's going to like be a medic and needs to carry a bunch of medic waters. And then this is kind of like my battery pouch. I have a large USB rechargeable battery that I can like recharge my phone from, recharge my watch from, even recharge my radios. I have a spare radio battery, some spare airsoft gun batteries, and then I have a couple little battery cases in here that are spare batteries for my night vision and flashlights and things like that. And I have a little spare stubby antenna for my radio just in case, and some extra charging cables and attachments. All right, that's a pretty basic overview of my gear. This is by no means an exhaustive list or anything like that. This is just an example. It's one example of one game that I'm going to be working. Again, a lot of these things are going to vary based on what faction I'm in, what time of year it is, where in the country we're doing the game, you know, the weather, stuff like that. Another thing I would highly recommend for all players, not just new players, is before the game, at least a week before, get all of your gear together, pack it all up, make sure it all fits in your ruck, all the stuff that you're planning on bringing, throw it on, make sure you can carry it, all that good stuff, but also go through a list and make sure that you have everything that you need, because sometimes maybe you threw all your gear in a pile after the last game you played or something like that, and your batteries aren't charged, or you forgot to replenish something like baby wipes that are kind of like an expendable item. Doing it well in advance of the game gives you that time to, you know, run to the store and get more baby wipes, or charge up all your batteries over a day or two as you're like swapping everything out on chargers and stuff. Like, I definitely make sure all my shit's charged up several days before I actually start traveling, so that I'm not worrying about that shit last minute. It just makes everything easier. I always do that, and I think it's a good habit to get into. Whoa. Check out this cool ass snake. He's just slithering by while I'm filming this video. Check this out. Hopefully you guys can see him there. He's not dangerous, he's just minding his own business. Looks like a striped racer maybe. I don't know, I'll have to look it up later. Pretty cool.